The pen was already on the table. The appointment document had been prepared. The announcement was being quietly coordinated, and Camilla believed only one final formality remained before her son entered the royal household with an official palace role. Then William walked into the room. He read the name, saw that no proper approval had been secured, and stopped the process with a single command, turning a private family arrangement into a confrontation over the future integrity of the monarchy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William stood at the end of the table and read the proposed title again. Special Advisor to the Royal Household on Hospitality and Public Events. The royal household, the staff and offices that organize the monarch's duties, would have given Tom Parker Bowles access to meetings, residences, senior employees, and preparations funded in the Crown's name. This was not a harmless favor. It was a doorway into power. Camilla kept one hand beside the unused pen as William asked who had approved the appointment. She answered that the details had been settled, but the prince did not move. He understood that a family conversation had been treated as formal authority. The queen consort heard the challenge beneath his silence, and her face tightened as the room turned against the promise she had made to her son. The private secretary reached for the authorization folder only after William gave the order. An authorization folder was the formal file holding papers awaiting final royal approval, and removing the document meant the appointment could not proceed. Camilla watched the paper disappear. She felt corrected as a royal wife, but wounded as a mother who believed she was securing dignity for Tom. The danger was closer than anyone admitted. A draft notice was already waiting for circulation to palace departments, and staff had been told to expect an announcement before noon. Another few minutes might have transformed an internal assumption into a public fact, forcing Charles to defend a decision he had never made. Charles had discussed Tom offering occasional informal advice, nothing more. The king had never approved a permanent office, yet Camilla's team had treated his private encouragement as permission to build one. William then noticed an attached access schedule listing rooms, residences, and meetings beyond hospitality. He looked at the queen consort, then at the unsigned page, and realized the title was only the beginning. William had stopped the pen, but to understand why that refusal cut so deeply, the palace first had to confront what each person in that room believed they were protecting. To the palace, Tom Parker Bowles was the Queen's son, a private citizen standing dangerously close to royal authority. To Camilla, he was something far more vulnerable, the child who had endured decades of headlines, public judgment, and the consequences of his mother's place beside the king. William saw the same man differently. He saw an unapproved doorway into the monarchy, and he feared that once family loyalty crossed that threshold, the crown would struggle to force it back outside. Camilla believed her reasoning was practical. Tom had spent years writing about food, appearing on broadcasts, and commenting on major public events. She imagined him advising on state banquets, charitable food projects, palace receptions, and the modern face of royal hospitality. A state banquet is a formal dinner held for visiting national leaders, and every detail carries diplomatic meaning. To the queen consort, her son's experience made him useful. To William, usefulness did not erase the danger of giving a relative official authority without proper approval. William had already admitted that families offered private advice. That was not the problem. An official household role meant access to staff, internal meetings, royal residences, and decisions made in the monarch's name. The prince feared the appearance of favoritism almost as much as favoritism itself. Once the public believed family connections could replace open approval, every future appointment would carry suspicion. He knew he would one day inherit that damage. Camilla had not thought in those terms when she spoke to Tom before the planned announcement. She told him that his years outside official royal life were finally being recognized. The mother saw relief in her son's face, and she allowed herself to believe she had repaired an old wound. Hours later, she had to tell him that William had blocked the role. Her words slowed, her confidence disappeared. She could not easily admit that she had promised something she never possessed the power to guarantee. Tom listened without interrupting. Then he asked whether the family would always see him as an embarrassment. Camilla rejected the accusation immediately, but the question struck deeper than anger. She had tried to protect her son from exclusion, and instead, she had placed him at the center of it. William had expected that charge before the confrontation began. Catherine watched him prepare for the meeting and saw tension in his hands. She reminded him that refusing improper authority was not the same as rejecting a person. Charles understood the same distinction, yet the king remained trapped between his wife's pain and his heir's duty. He feared wounding Camilla, but he feared leaving William a precedent that could weaken the crown. The blocked signature was only the explosion. The fuse had been lit several nights earlier, during a reception rehearsal that exposed how far the proposed role had already begun to reach. The confrontation did not truly begin with an appointment paper. It began 4 nights earlier, beneath the chandeliers of St. James's Palace, when Tom Parker Bowles arrived at a private reception rehearsal and behaved as though his new authority had already taken effect. One instruction delivered to a senior courtier in front of stunned staff reached William before midnight. By morning, the prince no longer viewed the proposed appointment as a harmless favor. He viewed it as an urgent threat to palace discipline. Tom had entered the rehearsal at Camilla's invitation, confident that his official role would be confirmed within days. The gathering was preparing for a Commonwealth reception, a formal palace event bringing together representatives from nations historically linked to the crown. Staff had been told that the Queen's son was attending as an advisor, yet no written order explained what he could inspect, request, or change. That uncertainty gave him influence without clear limits. Tom studied the approved seating plan and instructed the deputy master of the household to move 2 representatives from Catherine's early childhood charity away from the principal table. The deputy master, the senior official helping coordinate palace ceremonies and formal events, refused politely because the arrangement had already received authorization. He also rejected a request to place one of Tom's personal associates near the leading guests. The refusal changed the atmosphere. Tom's face reddened, and he answered that Camilla had personally asked him to improve the reception. Several employees stopped speaking. His words had transformed a private invitation from his mother into something that sounded like a royal command. The courtier did not argue, but he documented the exchange and sent the account through official channels before the night ended. Catherine learned what had happened hours later. She did not demand punishment or accuse Camilla of deliberately targeting her work. Instead, the princess folded the original seating plan, placed it before William, and asked whether anyone still understood where personal influence was supposed to end. Her restraint disturbed him more than anger would have. She knew those charity representatives had been invited because their work mattered, yet they had nearly been displaced to reward someone's private connection. The reception coordinator then handed William an unsigned memorandum describing Tom as the incoming household advisor. A memorandum is an internal written note used to record instructions or plan decisions. That single phrase proved the appointment was already being treated as complete before Charles, the proper committee, or the prince had approved it. William requested the entire file and read it alone after midnight. He found proposed access to meetings, residences, staff briefings, and event plans. The future king closed the folder, called his private secretary, and froze every announcement, credential, and signature. Camilla discovered the order before William could approach Charles calmly. Feeling that her authority and her son's dignity had been attacked, she demanded an immediate meeting and insisted that the appointment paper be placed before the king. By the time William entered that meeting, neither side was discussing a reception anymore. They were preparing to decide whether family loyalty could overrule the boundaries of the crown. Camilla expected resistance, but she did not expect William to close the appointment folder, slide it away from the king, and state that the role would not proceed. The room fell silent. Charles remained seated. Tom was not present, yet his future dominated every word that followed. What began as a dispute over procedure became a brutal argument about motherhood, inheritance, influence, and the fear that the monarchy was being divided into 2 competing families, one born to the crown and one brought inside through marriage. William faced Camilla across a private Buckingham Palace office, while Charles watched from the head of the table. The king's private secretary and senior constitutional advisor remained nearby, each knowing that one careless sentence could deepen the crisis. A constitutional advisor is an official who helps ensure royal decisions follow legal and institutional rules. Beside the appointment paper rested the red folder containing every access privilege proposed for Tom. William stated his objection without softening it. Tom could not enter the royal household without Charles's clear approval. A conflict review, defined duties, security clearance, and consultation with the departments he would influence. The prince knew why those safeguards mattered. Palace access could expose private schedules and sensitive plans, while an undefined role could allow personal requests to sound like commands issued in the monarch's name. Camilla leaned forward and accused William of treating her son as though he intended to control the monarchy. She insisted that Tom was offering experience, not seeking power. Then the queen consort delivered the question she believed would expose his double standard. Would he show the same suspicion toward a member of his own family? William did not retreat. He answered that he would stop any relative, including one from his own side, if that person attempted to enter the household through assumed approval. The future king placed his palm over the signature line and spoke with final force. He will not be appointed this way. Camilla turned immediately toward Charles. She asked him to confirm that they had discussed the role and that he had supported Tom's involvement. The king admitted they had spoken about occasional informal assistance, but he refused to say that he had authorized a permanent position. His answer wounded her, because it destroyed the certainty on which she had built her son's expectations. William opened the attachment and read the proposed privileges aloud. Tom would attend hospitality briefings, enter selected residences during official preparations, communicate directly with senior staff, and review event planning materials. Charles removed his glasses. The monarch had never agreed to anything so broad, and his silence confirmed that the position had grown beyond his understanding. Camilla rose and pushed back her chair. She warned William that stopping the document would carry consequences inside the family. Then she left the appointment untouched, casting one final look toward Charles that shifted the conflict toward him. William had won control of the document, yet control of the palace depended on something more powerful than paper, the hidden network of consent, loyalty, and silence surrounding the king. The argument left one question hanging over Buckingham Palace. How could William stop an appointment during his father's reign? The answer was not that the prince had seized the king's authority. It was that the appointment had never legally reached the king's authority at all. Camilla's confidence had carried the proposal forward, but confidence was not consent. As Charles examined the file in silence, he faced an uncomfortable truth: William had not overturned a royal decision. He had prevented the palace from pretending one existed. Charles alone possessed the power to create the position inside his household. Yet even the monarch's approval could not responsibly erase the checks surrounding official employment. A security review examined whether access to royal people, buildings, and information created risks. Budget approval determined who would fund the role, while departmental consultation ensured that staff understood the new advisor's limits. Without those safeguards, Tom's private connection to Camilla could have become public authority without accountability. William had not acted as though the throne already belonged to him. The prince remained the heir, the person first in line to succeed the sovereign, and that position gave him responsibility without final control. Tom's proposed access would have affected his events, Catherine's charities, palace employees, and the household William would one day inherit. He could not authorize the final decision, but he could stop an incomplete process from being disguised as a completed one. Charles waited until Camilla had left before asking everyone except his private secretary to leave. The king opened the memorandum again, read each line, and set it down slowly. For nearly a minute, he said nothing. His disappointment reached beyond the queen's office. He blamed himself for discussing informal assistance so loosely that others had turned possibility into expectation, and expectation into a promised appointment. The private secretary finally admitted what no one else had dared to say. Staff had suspected that proper approval was missing, but they feared challenging Camilla's office would appear disrespectful. Charles looked up sharply. The monarch answered that respect could never require an employee to invent permission, because silence in such moments did not protect the crown. It weakened it. Charles then reached the budget note. Tom's role could eventually have included office support, reimbursed travel, security coordination, and expenses linked to official events. A contribution described as modest might therefore have become a publicly funded position, exposing the family to accusations that palace privilege had been used to reward one of its own. The decision came without drama. Charles drew a line through the planned circulation date and ordered the entire proposal suspended. The king demanded a review of every instruction given under the belief that Tom was already joining the household. An aide then removed Tom's temporary rehearsal credential and canceled his palace briefing. The message reached his phone while he sat beside Camilla. The palace had finally imposed its rules, but rules do not absorb humiliation, and when Tom's access disappeared with a message on his phone, the human fallout began immediately. There was no public dismissal, no ceremonial announcement, and no dramatic escort from the palace. Tom Parker Bowles learned that his future had vanished through a short cancellation message. His planned briefing was removed. His temporary access was withdrawn. The role his mother had described as settled no longer existed. Sitting beside Camilla, he read the words twice before placing the phone face down. For the first time, the controversy was no longer about royal procedure. It was about a son who felt unwanted. Tom's scheduled meeting with palace hospitality officials disappeared from the diary within minutes. His prepared biography was removed from the internal announcement package. The collection of documents arranged for staff before a new appointment becomes public. Senior employees were instructed not to treat him as an advisor, representative, or incoming household member. The decision mattered because every canceled detail erased another sign that the palace had once been preparing to welcome him. Charles ordered Camilla's senior aides to produce a complete timeline. The king wanted to know who had drafted the title, who had requested the access schedule, and who had told employees that the appointment was almost complete. His review reached beyond Tom because the failure had exposed something larger. Staff had allowed fear of offending the queen consort to replace the need for clear authority. Tom finally looked at his mother and asked the question she had been avoiding. Had Charles ever truly approved the role? Camilla answered that the monarch had been supportive, but her son repeated himself. This time, she could not hide behind careful language. She admitted that no final authorization had been given. Camilla reached toward him, but Tom stood before she could take his hand. He asked why she had spoken as though the appointment was certain when the king had never signed it. The queen consort tried to explain that she believed formal consent would follow, yet even she heard how weak that sounded. Her attempt to protect her son had not brought him dignity. It had led him directly into a rejection he never expected. Tom's hurt hardened into anger. He refused to be portrayed as a man who had tried to seize royal influence, and he considered releasing a statement explaining that he had acted only because he believed the position was approved. Camilla understood the danger immediately. A public response could expose the reception dispute, deepen the conflict with William, and force Charles to choose sides before the entire country. William learned of Tom's intention through a documented briefing from his communications secretary. The prince immediately ordered his team not to attack him, leak the rehearsal incident, or describe him as ambitious. He insisted that the matter remain a failed authorization process, not a scandal built around Camilla's son. William then requested a private meeting with Tom. No aides, no parents, no appointment papers. The canceled role had turned Tom into the symbol of a battle he had not fully understood, but William was about to offer him something the palace paperwork never had: the truth without an audience. When William and Tom finally sat across from one another, there were no advisors to interpret their words and no royal parents to defend. Tom expected a warning. William expected anger. Both arrived carrying years of unspoken suspicion between the king's two families. Yet the meeting did not become another confrontation. It became the first moment in which the future king explained that he had not stopped Tom because of who his mother was. He had stopped a role that should never have been promised. William had chosen a small study at Windsor Castle, far from the formal rooms usually associated with royal decisions. Windsor Castle is a working royal residence, where the monarch and senior family members conduct official duties as well as private meetings. No documents separated the two men. There were no staff members waiting to record every sentence. The prince wanted Tom to understand that this conversation was about trust, not ceremony. William spoke first. He told Tom that his experience with food, charities, broadcasting, and major public events had never been the central objection. The problem was the undefined position created around him before anyone had established its authority, safeguards, or limits. A palace title would not merely recognize expertise. It would give his words weight over employees who might fear refusing the queen's son. Tom listened, but resentment soon broke through. He admitted that he had spent years feeling trapped between two expectations. The crown wanted him close enough to support Camilla, yet distant enough to avoid becoming a source of embarrassment. The proposed appointment had seemed like proof that the royal family finally considered him useful rather than inconvenient. Losing it felt like being pushed back outside. William lowered his voice. He accepted that the cancellation had humiliated Tom and admitted the palace should have corrected the misunderstanding before his mother presented the role as settled. The future king did not apologize for stopping the appointment, but he acknowledged that delayed honesty had turned a procedural failure into a personal wound. Tom then asked the question that mattered most. Did William believe Camilla's children could ever hold a legitimate place in royal public life? The prince answered that they could contribute, but not through hidden influence, assumed approval, or positions created by family expectation. Trust had to begin with boundaries. William offered another path. Tom could assist independent food security and hospitality charities as an external contributor, meaning someone who supported projects without becoming a palace employee. He would receive no royal title, privileged access, public funding, or authority over household decisions. Tom remained silent before rejecting the disputed appointment himself. He would not accept a role that had divided his mother from William, though he would consider helping charities under transparent terms. The private conflict had found its answer, yet the palace could not keep the blocked appointment hidden forever. And once the story reached the gates, the nation turned one frozen moment into a verdict on the monarchy. By sunrise, the private appointment dispute had escaped the palace. Broadcasters spoke of a clash between the Queen and the Prince of Wales. Newspapers asked whether William had protected royal standards or publicly weakened his stepmother. Outside Buckingham Palace, cameras gathered before the gates, while tourists held freshly printed front pages. Yet one image came to define the entire controversy. William's hand resting over an unsigned appointment document as Camilla's empty chair stood pushed back from the table. News outlets framed the dispute as more than a family disagreement. They called it a test of whether the sovereign's household, the offices and staff serving the reigning monarch, could resist favoritism when pressure came from inside the royal family itself. The debate mattered because William would inherit every precedent created under Charles, while Camilla's children would remain permanently connected to the crown without being born into its official line of duty. Buckingham Palace answered with carefully controlled words. Its statement confirmed that no appointment had been finalized, and that every household position required proper authorization. It blamed no one by name. The silence around Camilla, William, and Tom protected them from direct accusation, but it also allowed the public to fill the gaps with anger, sympathy, and suspicion. Camilla unfolded the morning newspaper at breakfast and found the headline waiting. William blocks palace role for Queen's son. She stared at it without speaking. Then the Queen consort folded the page inward and asked an aide to remove the remaining copies before Charles entered. She could endure criticism of herself, but seeing Tom reduced to a symbol of royal favoritism reopened the guilt she had tried to contain. William faced a different wound. Commentators praised the prince for stopping privilege from becoming policy, while others accused him of humiliating the king's wife to strengthen his future authority. He watched a morning broadcast in silence. The future king had defended the institution, yet the same act made him appear cold toward a mother and ruthless toward her son. Outside Buckingham Palace, a crowd gathered near the Victoria Memorial, the monument standing before the palace gates. A broadcaster held up the unsigned document front page during a live report. One woman called William's intervention the boundary the palace should have drawn itself. Another insisted Camilla had been punished for trying to help her child. Their opposing words captured the entire national divide. Tom ended the speculation through a written public statement released by his representative. He confirmed that he would not accept the proposed role and had never intended to exercise royal authority. His decision removed the threat of a prolonged battle and spared his mother from defending the appointment again. Charles then summoned William and Camilla to the office, where everything had begun. The world had delivered its noisy judgment, but the final verdict belonged inside the family, where Charles now had to decide whether the crisis would leave resentment or establish a rule strong enough to outlive them all. The final meeting began in the same room where the appointment had collapsed, but everything had changed. The disputed folder was gone. Tom had withdrawn. The public statement had ended the speculation. Now Charles faced his wife and his heir not as opponents fighting over a position, but as members of one family forced to accept that love could not substitute for authority. What the king said next did not restore the appointment. It established the boundary the palace should have protected before William was forced to intervene. Charles confirmed that Tom Parker Bowles would not receive the proposed palace role, and no replacement position would be created under another name. Any future contribution from a royal relative would require written duties, an independent review, clear funding, and formal authorization. Formal authorization meant recorded approval from the person legally responsible for the decision, not a hopeful conversation later interpreted as permission. The monarch wanted no uncertainty left behind. The king then introduced a safeguard that reached both sides of the family. No relative connected to Charles or William could be presented to palace staff as an incoming advisor before every review had been completed. Private encouragement would no longer become an instruction. A conversation would not become an appointment. Affection would not become authority. Charles turned toward Camilla and accepted his share of responsibility. His vague encouragement had allowed her to believe he supported more than he had actually approved. The monarch did not excuse the way her office had moved forward, but he admitted that his reluctance to speak clearly had helped create the crisis. Silence had protected no one. It had wounded everyone. Camilla listened before confronting the truth she had resisted. She admitted that her desire to secure dignity for Tom had outrun the limits of her position. The queen consort did not apologize for loving her son, and no one asked her to. She apologized for placing him and Charles in a situation where private devotion looked like public entitlement. Charles then addressed William. He told the prince that stopping the process had been painful but necessary. The future king had not acted to punish Camilla or exclude Tom. He had acted because one unchecked favor could become a precedent that every future monarch would be forced to defend. Camilla looked across the table and said the manner of the intervention had still humiliated her son. William accepted the criticism. He promised that if another failure emerged, he would speak directly before allowing procedure to become personal injury. She answered with a restrained nod. It was not warmth, but it was recognition. The pen was never lifted again, the appointment was never revived, and the monarchy emerged with its boundary restored. Camilla remained a mother, William remained the heir, and the crown belonged to neither of them personally. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.